What up, YouTube? Let's hear. Thanks for visiting the channel. As always, I appreciate it. What do I got for you today? We're going to be doing a couple of things. First thing I want to do is go over one of the knives I've already shown you. The maker is releasing a new batch here shortly. Either that or he already has. I think he already has, actually. And then after that, I'm going to go over some knives with you guys. I want to go through a collection of knives that I think are some of the best knives for budget EDC for people who are either getting into the knife community or somebody who just wants to go out and buy a knife that they can own for the next couple of decades that'll last them as long as they take care of them. So we'll get started with this guy here. This is the Varga VBR, Varga by Riot knives. This gentleman makes his own custom knives. He also does some productions. I believe this is the only production model that he does. But I got this guy from somebody who had purchased it prior, so I'm not the original owner. But I got a pretty good deal on this guy. This is one of my favorite knives. There's really nothing wrong with it. The ergonomics is fantastic. The blade profile, blade geometry is great. It's a good slicer. It's got quite a bit of weight out towards the tip of the blade here, so plenty of strength there. All titanium construction. It's got G10 scales on it with titanium bolsters or faux bolsters, whatever you want to call it. This is a bolster lock knife. Like I said, yeah, it's one of the best knives in my collection, especially for the price. The original knives were $325 for the Gen 1 and the Gen 2. The Gen 3 is going to be $350, but I spoke with Mark about that, and he said it's, with the changes that he's made, it's well more than worth it for the extra 25 bucks. And I agree with him. Excuse me. So some of the changes, the Gen 3 is going to be offered either in with the scales, either OD Green micarta carbon fiber, snake skin carbon fiber, or dark matter blue carbon fiber. The last two are going to be an extra $5, so that's $355 for those two. It is going to be a left or right hand dominant knife. The titanium is going to either be blasted, stonewashed, or black PVD, your choice. The first two models that came out were only flipper models. The Gen 3 is going to have flipper and thumb studs, so that's pretty awesome. I always wish this guy had thumb studs on it. The Gen 1 that they came out with was 4.92 ounces, and the Gen 2 and the Gen 3 is 5.3 ounces. As I said, it's all titanium hardware, sculpted titanium clips, so he's going to be changing the clip as well. He's going to put some jimping on the spine of the blade here, and he's also going to be selling it with some custom box and a custom pouch that will come with the Gen 3 of this knife. As I said, it's $350 or $355, depending on which model you choose, and I don't think you can go wrong with that price. Anybody who's interested in this knife, I really think you should get out there and buy one before they are gone. I believe they are available on his site currently. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but the last time I looked, they were still available. So let's start with the rest of the video. As I said, budget EDC knives for people who either just want to buy one and carry it, or people who are considering getting into the knife community, collecting, stuff like that. But these are the Rat 1 and Rat 2, probably the two most recognizable knives in the knife community. Very affordable. I think this one's 35 or 40. I think this is 45 or 50. But the Rat 1 comes in at exactly 8.5 inches with a, excuse me, about a 3.5 inch blade with a 3.25 inch cutting edge. It is made with AUS 810 steel or D2. And the scales are made with Grivery injected molded plastic with steel liners, which I don't believe are skeletonized. No, they're not. The Rat 2 is 7 inches, and that has a 3 3/4 inch blade with a it's got a 3-inch blade with a 2 3/4 inch cutting edge on it. Also, AUS 8 steel. With Grivery scales and non-skeletonized steel liners. These are both great budget knives. They'll last you forever if you treat them right, and they work fantastic. The ergonomics is great. The blade profile is great. They're great slicers. You really can't go wrong with these two knives. I'm going to leave these here just for size comparison. Most of the people in the knife community already know about these knives, and most people already own them. So just wanted to leave those out there just for size comparison. The next one I'm going to do here is actually a multi-tool. I think multi-tools are great for their knives. They're also great for everything else that they do. This particular one is the Leatherman OHT, Leatherman one-handed tool. And the reason they call it that, obviously, is because you can use and operate it with one hand. So you can open all the different accessories, close them. They've got locking liners on them, which are pretty easy to operate. And it also has not spring-loaded, but you can slide the pliers up and down and they lock in place, which are pretty awesome. The pliers themselves are spring-loaded, so you don't have to really worry about fumbling around to operate these very much. They also have flathead screwdriver, can opener, bottle opener, serrated knife saw. What else is on here? You've got an oxygen key, Phillips head screwdriver, and it also has a threaded area here for a cleaning rod for pistols, which is nice. This, I believe, is $120 or $140 off of Amazon, and it's a great tool. I've had it for a couple of years, and I've never had any issues with it. Anybody that is looking to get into one of these, I think that this is a great option. But then again, so are everybody. You know, anything from Gerber or Leatherman or anybody else that makes these sort of thing, they're all pretty good quality these days for the most part. Next one here is basically a throwaway knife. When I was getting into, let's say getting into buying knives, probably not collecting knives, this was one of the first knives I bought. It's from a company called F & Grow. They do mostly copies. They do have some of their own models, but I think this might be a copy of the Kershaw bare knuckle, but I could be wrong. It's a decent knife, though. I mean, it's got good ergonomics, good blade profile, good cutting geometry. It's a good slicer, nice long blade. It's made with D2 steel, which is pretty good. It's got G10 liners on it. It's running on bearings, steel liners, and standoffs. There's nothing special or crazy about this knife, but it's a decent knife to buy for something that, you know, if you break it or lose it, you won't really miss it all that much. You can just go get another one. I think it was 15 or 20 bucks, somewhere between there. But it's a pretty good knife. I don't really use it, but I thought it was nice when I bought it. The next one here is just your normal old timer slip joint folder. This was my grandfather's, so I don't really do anything with it. It kind of just stays in my case. It's more of a sentimental knife to me. I don't carry it or use it at all. But I think these are pretty good options for most people who just want a small knife to keep in their pocket. Probably the first company that comes to mind with these is Case. If anybody's ever looking for one of these, I think Case is a pretty good company that makes good quality tools. They come out of Bradford, Pennsylvania, which is actually pretty close to where I live. So, you know, I think these are a good option for most people who just want to go out and buy one knife and then not have to worry about it for the rest of their life. I'm not sure how expensive these usually are. I've never really bought one, but I think you can get them starting around 40 or 50 bucks. They might come in cheaper than that for certain models, but I have no idea. But again, I think these are a good option for people. The next one is the anything from Buck, really. This is the Buck 110, but I think any of the brands or any of the models that Buck makes are gonna treat you well, you know, as long as you take care of them. They make them in different materials. They come in carbon fiber, G10. Sometimes they use brass for the bolsters. Sometimes they use nickel or silver, depending on how expensive you want to get with it. But these are decent knives, backlocks, and basically indestructible. They'll last you forever as long as you treat them right. Next one going down the line here, I'm kind of going by price. So I think this is the QSP Penguin. These come in at, I think, around 30 or 40 bucks, but they have other models that get more expensive as you go along. This is just a laminate carbon fiber with G10. With I believe, D2 blade. Yeah, this one has a D2 blade on it. This is a fantastic EDC knife in the budget territory. It's got good ergonomics. It's running on, I want to say, phosphor bronze and nylon washers. Uh, this particular one doesn't have a backspacer on it or anything like that. The steel liners are not skeletonized, but it's still a light enough knife, being as small as it is. But even as small as it is, it still carries like I'd say a medium to standard size knife. I got pretty big hands, and this usually works pretty well for me. I really like this knife a lot. I think you can't really go wrong with a QSP Penguin. A lot of people out there love these knives. They're very, very popular. So again, if you're looking for something with a good budget and a decent quality knife, the QSP Penguin, you really can't go wrong with this one either. Start measuring these for you. So this guy is just a hair over 7 inches. And the blade itself is about 3 inches with a 2.75 inch cutting edge. It's a pretty decent sized knife, I'd say, with the ergonomics and everything. It's a good slicer, a little bit robust out at the tip, so you got plenty of power out here. Sorry, you got plenty of strength out here. You don't really have to worry about the tip breaking off. But it's a pretty decent knife. The next one is going to be, I have to say, I'm a little bit biased here, guys. This is a cjrb knife, but when I got into collecting knives, I really, really, really love civivis. So there's a lot of civivis on this list. I apologize about that. But I'm going to show you this one. So this is the cjrb, the cjrb Rampart. It's a pretty decent budget knife. I think it was 35 or 40 bucks. You got a nice wide or thick blade here, which I think is about 3.5 inches long. Yeah, the blade's about 3.5 inches long with just a hair over 3-inch cutting edge. G10 scales, non-skeletonized steel liners, got a couple of standoffs back here. It's running on bearings with little anodized steel pivot collars there. Most of cjrb knives come with different colored pivot collars. Depending on what knife you get, it's going to be a different color. They do come in different scale colors, but I believe the steels are always going to be D2. Yeah, D2. These are obviously made in China. But this is a decent knife. This is an absolute powerhouse going through cardboard. But it's also a great everyday carry knife. It'll do whatever you need it to do. It's got a nice forward finger choil on it, so you can choke up if you want to, get a good grip on it. And the balance here is just right behind the pivot, as it should be. So that's pretty sweet. I like this knife a lot. I don't really use it anymore, but when I bought it, I used it all the time. As you can see, the blade's a little narked up there. But this is a pretty decent knife. Moving on to the civivis. Excuse me. So this here is the civivi. Oh my goodness, I've forgotten the name of this knife. How bad is that? That's pretty bad. Let me think here. Yeah, I've lost it, guys. I'm sorry. I can't remember the name of this knife, but this is an awesome one. I'm so stupid. Let me try to come back to that, see if I can't remember the name of it. This guy here is the civivi Backlash. This is probably one of the most recommended budget knives for me. If anybody ever asks me, you know, what's a good budget knife to get that'll last me a good long while. It's got a good blade on it. It's not, you know, too hard to carry. Nice size. This is one of the most common ones that I recommend to people. It's probably the most standard knife shape, and it's got, you know, just great ergonomics on it. This little dip in the handle here, got a good finger choil there, and you've got this nice little ramp on the blade with plenty of jimping. A nice 3.25 inch blade here, which has a 3-inch cutting edge on it. This is just a great knife for everyday carry. It's running on bearings. It's got G10 handles with anodized stainless steel liners, which are skeletonized. I really love these blue liners here. They kind of really make the knife pop. So this is kind of getting into the territory where you're, you know, kind of wanting it to be a little bit pretty as well as functioning properly. This last knife here that I've you know, inexplicably forgotten the name to, is kind of where starting out to where you get into pretty knives and stuff like that. But this one is probably, I think, a little bit more recommendable for me, just because it's a little bit bigger, and because this last with the Ortis, Jesus, I finally remembered it. So the Ortis is a little bit smaller, so that's why I recommend the Backlash a little bit more than I recommend the Ortis. I'll come back to this in a minute. So anyway, it's probably just because I have bigger hands. Some people with smaller hands might prefer the Ortis over the Backlash, but this has always been one of my absolute favorite knives. So the next one, well, I'll go with this one first. So the Civivi Ortis. I'm an idiot. I forgot the name of it for quite a while. You definitely don't have to buy this, model. This is the one with actual carbon fiber scales, and it's got a Damascus blade on it. Black hand rubbed Damascus. It's running on bearings. It's got skeletonized stainless steel liners, and it's got a backspacer on it, which allows for this little pin here, which acts as the lanyard area. It's a flipper, and you can also use the thumb hole to open it, but there are no thumb studs on this knife, which isn't the end of the world. I can figure out how to use this one. But for people with smaller hands, I think this is a great option. I think this was 75 or 85 bucks, so it's a little bit more expensive, but the quality that you get here is far and away better than a lot of the smaller knives that I see, especially better than, the Rat 1 or the Rat 2. This is kind of when you're getting into more exotic territories here. But Civivi always provides quite a bit of quality and better materials for, a little bit more of a reasonable price. So anyway, as I was saying, the Ortis or the Backlash, I think, would be the best option for somebody who's looking to get into possibly starting to collect or more exotic materials, but doesn't want to pay a hell of a lot of money. But as I said earlier, you don't have to buy this model. There are less expensive models that come with just G10 scales and regular stainless steel blades. This one, I believe, is like a little more than 7 inches. Yeah, 7.5 inches with a 3.25 inch cutting edge. I'm sorry, 3.25 inch blade and a 3-inch cutting edge on it. So again, for smaller hands, this knife's pretty good for most people. Moving further into the Civivi territory, we have here the Civivi Conspirator. Which this knife, in a lot of ways, kind of reminds me of the Shaman, with a little bit of a different profile on the handle. But the blade is very reminiscent of that. It's got kind of a taller blade, leaf-shaped a little bit. Nice thin cutting edge, plenty of robustness out towards the tip. Nice jimping on the thumb, or the spine of the blade here. It's got wooden handle scales on this one, but they do come in G10, and skeletonized stainless steel liners with bearings. But this knife is a button lock, which is becoming more and more popular in the knife community these days. So if you're already getting into knives a little bit and you want to play around with a little bit of a different locking mechanism or closing mechanism, then I think button locks are good thing to look into. These are pretty sweet. This Conspirator, I think, runs around 60 or 70 bucks. I was more than happy to buy this one. There's a couple of different models that came out recently with button locks on them. The most recent, I believe, was the Chevalier, which was right after this one. I didn't want to buy that one just because it's pretty much the same knife, just got a little bit of a different blade profile on it. So I was happy with this one. This guy, let's see here. So this is 8 inches long, with a 3.5 inch blade and just a little bit less than 3.5 inch cutting edge. So you don't have a finger choil here, but you definitely have a cutting choil. This is a very recommendable knife. I think with the blade profile, the blade geometry, the ergonomics, the button lock, the bearings, everything about this knife is pretty awesome. So I would definitely recommend this one to just about anyone who's looking into that level of a knife. The next one here is the Civivi Relic. Another great knife. I really enjoy this one, probably more than the Conspirator, and I don't know why that is, but I think I just like the way the shape of it a little bit more. Straight lines, awesome um, uh, blade geometry, and awesome ergonomics. Another cool thing about this knife is that it has a pair of tweezers in the back of the handle here, which is pretty awesome. I don't know why it's awesome, but it is. Comes in all kinds of different colors, G10 handles, skeletonized steel liners, bearings, and D2, or is it Nitro V? Nitro V steel. Flipper only, but the action on it's pretty sweet. It works great, and a very slicey knife. Good size. It's not too big, not too small. Just right. I believe this is also an 8-inch knife. Yep, 8 inches with a 3.5-inch blade and just under, right between 3.5 and 3.25 inch cutting edge. I think this one was around $75 or $80. And again, this is a pretty awesome knife. Now, when it comes to the most recommendable budget knife, as far as I'm concerned, the Civivi Praxis is always going to do it for me. I love this knife the second I saw it. I bought the Damascus version, but that's only because I thought it was absolutely beautiful. Any version of this knife will do whatever you want it to do. I feel like this knife is perfect in every way. I think it's a little bit more expensive. I think it was 85 or 90 bucks, but that's more than worth it for me. Handle geometry is perfect. Blade geometry is perfect. Nice big finger choil. Runs on bearings. It's G10. Excuse me, with skeletonized steel liners and a backspacer, which has, thank God, has the lanyard hole there. This is just a great knife in every way. I can't say anything more about this knife at all. Obviously, you can buy it without the Damascus blade, and I think anybody who's looking into a decent knife that'll last them forever and is comfortable and works well, I think this is your best option, personally, in my opinion. So, the last knife that I have, this is for people who want to get into a little bit more expensive territory, more exotic materials, but it's also still a button lock. Probably one of the most iconic knives, most popular knives around the last couple of years, the Protech Malibu. This is a couple $100, but it's absolutely worth it. This guy comes with aluminum scales. It's a button lock, and it has, what is it, a 3-inch? Excuse my dogs. It's got a 3.5-inch blade, sorry, 3.25-inch blade with a 3.25-inch cutting edge. No finger choil, but there's a sharpening choil. You're not really sacrificing any blade edge or edge length for that sharpening choil. And it's a button lock. First button lock, I believe, that was made by Protech, which isn't an automatic. These were so popular for quite a while that you couldn't even get them. But I managed to get my hands on one pretty quick, luckily. But like I said, I think they're around $200. They are very expensive, but they're absolutely worth it. They're fidgety, they're fun. You got plenty of blade length with, not a lot of handle length. This is probably the best ratio that I've seen. Let's see, you've got 3.25 of blade length and 4 inches of handle. So it's pretty close, and I think that this is probably one of the best knives that you can get, without getting too crazy with the locking mechanism, the steel, the, not made out of titanium, stuff like that. So yes, it is relatively expensive, but it's from a fantastic company and is fantastic quality knife. That's a lot of fun to play with. So that's my feelings on it. I think that's everything that I wanted to say to you guys for now. I appreciate you watching the video. If you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them in the bottom. I appreciate you watching the video. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye.